There are moments in life that appear very small, so small that most people pass through them without noticing anything unusual. A few words spoken carelessly, a look that lingers a little too long, a quiet misunderstanding that floats into the room like dust in the light. Nothing dramatic happens. No loud argument. No sudden storm. Just a moment. And yet, something inside you shifts. Perhaps someone says something about you. Something slightly unfair. Something that does not feel true. The words are light, almost casual, but they touch a place within you that feels sensitive, exposed. You hear them. You understand them. And for a brief second, the air around you becomes still. There is a strange pause that only you can feel. Outwardly, everything continues as normal. Voices continue speaking. Faces remain calm, but inside, something begins to move. A quiet pressure, a rising urge, the desire to respond. It comes quickly, almost like a reflex. Words begin to gather in your mind. Explanations, defenses, corrections. You feel the pull to set the story straight, to clear the misunderstanding before it grows. Isn't that natural? After all, who wants to be seen the wrong way? Who wants to sit quietly while others form ideas that are not true? The mind begins to prepare its answer. It gathers memories. It gathers reasons. It gathers proof. But then, something curious happens. Between the moment you hear those words and the moment you speak, there is a space, so small that many people never notice it. Yet within that space lies a quiet question. Who will you be in this moment? It is not a question that demands an immediate answer. It does not shout. It does not rush. It simply waits there, softly, almost like a whisper passing through the heart, because reacting is easy. Words can leave the mouth faster than we can even think. A sharp response can rise like fire, warming the ego for a brief moment, and for a second, it may feel satisfying. But there is another feeling as well, a quieter one, a feeling that watches from deeper within. It wonders what will remain after the moment passes, because moments like these have a strange power. They reveal things we do not always see in ourselves. Not the version of us that appears when everything is calm and pleasant, but the version that appears when we feel misunderstood, when something inside feels slightly wounded, when pride begins to stir. In these small, almost invisible moments, the heart becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, something very simple is reflected. Not what they said, not whether they were right or wrong, but who we choose to become when the moment presses against us. Most people believe the important part of the moment is the words spoken. But often, the real lesson lives in the silence that follows. That quiet pause, that invisible breath between hearing and answering. Some rush through it quickly. They fill the silence before it can even settle. They protect themselves with explanations, arguments, and sharp replies. Others feel the weight of that silence. It feels uncomfortable at first. Almost like standing alone in a room where everyone is watching. The mind wonders, if I stay quiet, What will they think? Will they assume the words are true? Will they believe the misunderstanding? Will they mistake silence for weakness? These thoughts pass through the mind like restless clouds. And yet, beneath those thoughts, something deeper waits patiently, something calm, something that does not rush to defend itself. But in the beginning, that quiet voice is very easy to ignore, because the moment feels important. The words feel heavy, and the urge to react feels almost impossible to resist. Still, the moment remains, small, quiet, waiting. A simple moment that many would forget by tomorrow. But sometimes, a life can begin to change in moments exactly like this. Not through loud decisions, not through dramatic actions, but through a single, quiet pause, where a person begins to see something within themselves they had never noticed before. The silence stays. At first, it feels almost unnatural, like holding your breath a moment longer than expected. Words were ready to leave your mouth, yet they remain where they are. The moment stretches quietly, and something inside begins to feel the weight of it. They continue speaking. Perhaps their voices carry a hint of certainty. Perhaps they believe they understand you. Perhaps they believe they have already decided the truth of the matter. You hear their words, but now you also hear something else, your own thoughts. They begin to move gently, like leaves drifting across still water. Why did they say that? Did they truly mean it? Or was it simply spoken without much thought? The mind searches for answers. It tries to arrange the pieces of the moment so they make sense. But the more you observe, the more another feeling begins to appear. A quiet discomfort, not loud, not overwhelming, just present. Because silence, in moments like this, can feel very heavy. It sits in the air between people. It leaves space where explanations might have lived. And sometimes, that empty space invites misunderstanding to grow. They might look at you differently now. Perhaps they expect you to defend yourself. Perhaps they wait for a quick response, a correction, a reaction that proves the words were wrong. And when none comes, they may begin to form their own meaning. Silence can easily be mistaken. Some believe it means agreement. Others believe it means defeat. Some even believe it reveals weakness. But inside you, the experience feels very different. Inside, the silence is not empty. It is full. Full of thoughts. Full of questions. Full of feelings that move slowly, carefully, trying to understand what truly matters in this moment. You notice how quickly people decide things about one another. A few words, and suddenly a whole story seems to appear in their minds. They think they understand, but do they? Perhaps they see only a small part of the picture. Perhaps they speak from their own feelings, their own assumptions, their own quiet worries that have nothing to do with you at all. Still, their words have reached you, and so the heart listens. For a brief moment, something inside feels the old urge again. The urge to step forward and explain everything clearly, to remove every doubt, to make sure the truth stands exactly where it belongs. It would be easy. Just a few sentences. Just a few careful words. The misunderstanding could disappear quickly. Yet something inside hesitates. Not out of fear, not out of confusion, but because a deeper question begins to rise slowly within the silence. Is every misunderstanding meant to be corrected, or are some moments meant simply to be witnessed? You watch their expressions. You listen to their voices. And little by little, a quiet realization begins to form. They are not truly searching for your understanding. They are speaking from their own. Sometimes people speak not because they know, but because they feel certain for a moment. Their certainty gives them comfort, even if it is incomplete. And if that is true, then what would your reaction truly change? Would it open their eyes? Or would it only create more words, more explanations, more tension, floating in the same quiet room? The mind turns these thoughts slowly, gently, like somehow, examining a small stone in their hand. Meanwhile, the silence remains. It still feels heavy, but now its weight feels different, less like pressure, more like presence. You begin to notice something about this quiet space, something many people rarely discover. Silence is not only the absence of sound, it is also the place where understanding grows. And in that quiet place, another realization begins to appear, soft and steady. Perhaps the moment is not asking you to prove yourself. Perhaps it is asking you something much simpler. Can you remain calm even when you are misunderstood? Not because the misunderstanding is fair, not because it feels pleasant, but because your peace may be worth more than the momentary relief of reacting. This realization does not arrive loudly. It arrives slowly, like a lantern being lit in a dark room. And once the small light appears, the silence no longer feels like a burden. It begins to feel like a choice. As the moment continues, something inside begins to settle. The mind that was once preparing its defense slowly becomes quiet. The need to correct every word, the urge to explain every detail, begins to loosen its grip, not because the misunderstanding has disappeared, but because another kind of understanding has begun to grow. You start to notice something simple. Not every word spoken by others carries the weight we first imagine. Sometimes people speak from passing feelings. Sometimes they speak from habits they have carried for years. And sometimes they speak from places within themselves that have nothing to do with you at all. Yet, in the beginning, it is easy to believe that every word must be answered. That silence leaves something unfinished. But as you sit with the quiet a little longer, another truth slowly appears. Many things in life do not need to be finished through words. Some things simply fade when they are not fed. It is a strange discovery at first. The heart had always believed that strength meant standing up quickly, answering firmly, making sure nothing was left misunderstood. It believed that silence might allow others to take something from you, your dignity, your voice, your place in the moment. But now, in the stillness, a different picture begins to form. What if dignity does not disappear so easily? What if it was never something others could take in the first place? This thought arrives quietly, but it carries a kind of calm strength. You begin to realize that reacting quickly often gives the moment more life than it deserves. Words grow larger when they are pushed back and forth. Small misunderstandings stretch into long exchanges, each side trying to defend their view of the story. Yet when silence remains, the moment cannot grow. It has nothing to feed on. It stands alone for a little while, and then, very often, it simply passes, like a small cloud moving across the sky. You observe them as they continue speaking, perhaps unaware of the quiet shift happening inside you. Their words move through the air, but they no longer land with the same force they once had. Something within you has stepped slightly back. Not in distance, but in perspective. You begin to see the moment from a wider place. They speak because it feels right to them. You remain quiet because something deeper feels right to you. Neither side fully understands the other. And strangely, that realization brings a gentle peace, because the moment no longer feels like a battle that must be won. It feels like a small crossing of paths where two different understandings briefly meet. One speaks, the other listens, and the world continues turning. Within this quiet awareness, another feeling slowly grows. Restraint. Not the kind that feels faux, raced, or tight, but the kind that feels steady and balanced, like a calm hand resting on the edge of a restless mind. You notice how much energy reaction requires. The mind must gather words, emotions must rise, voices must rise. Voices must respond. The whole body joins the moment, even when the moment itself is small. But silence asks very little. It asks only for patience, for breath, for the willingness to let the moment be exactly what it is, without trying to shape it into something else. And as this understanding deepens, the silence begins to feel less like holding back and more like choosing wisely. Because not every moment deserves your voice. Not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation. Some moments reveal more about others than they ever could about you. And when this becomes clear, a quiet strength begins to take root. It is not loud. It does not ask to be seen. It simply rests within you, calm and steady, like a tree that no longer bends with every passing wind. The words around you may continue. The thoughts of others may remain unchanged. But something important has shifted. You are no longer standing inside the moment. You are standing calmly within yourself. And from that place, silence no longer feels like weakness. It feels like quiet power. And after some time, the moment begins to loosen its hold. The voices that once felt sharp slowly become distant, like echoes that fade across an open field. The weight that rested on your chest becomes lighter, almost unnoticed. What once seemed like something urgent, something that demanded a response, now appears smaller than it first did. It is a quiet change. Nothing dramatic has happened. No final words were spoken. No clear ending was announced. And yet something inside you has settled into a calm place. You begin to notice how peaceful it feels when you no longer carry the need to react. there is a softness in that feeling. Not the softness of surrender, but the softness of understanding. The understanding that not every moment must be corrected, and not every voice must be answered. They may still hold their thoughts about you. They may still believe what they said, but strangely, that no longer feels as heavy as it once did, because something deeper has become clear. Your peace does not depend on their understanding. For a long time, many people quietly hope that others will see them exactly as they are. They hope that every intention will be understood, every action explained, every silence interpreted kindly. But life does not always unfold this way. Sometimes people misunderstand. Sometimes they decide things quickly. Sometimes they carry ideas that do not match the truth at all. And when that happens, the heart often feels a quiet pressure to fix it, to restore the balance, to make sure everything is seen clearly again. Yet with time, another realization begins to grow. Some understandings cannot be forced. They arrive only when another person is ready to see. And until that moment comes, explanations often travel in circles. So you allow the moment to remain as it is. Not because it feels perfect, not because it feels fair, but because your inner calm has begun to feel more valuable than the effort of correcting every shadow. The silence that once felt heavy now feels like a gentle space around you. Inside that space, your thoughts move more slowly. Your breathing feels steady. The heart is no longer preparing for another reply. It simply rests. You begin to see how much strength lives in this quiet place. Not the kind of strength that pushes against the world, but the kind that stands calmly within it. The kind that does not rush to defend itself. The kind that trusts time to reveal what words often cannot. And here is a quiet dignity in that patience. They may never know the thoughts that pass through your mind in that moment. They may never realize how easily the situation could have turned into something louder, something sharper. But that knowledge rests peacefully within you. You chose stillness. You chose to protect your own calm rather than feed the noise of the moment. And slowly, almost without noticing, a deeper respect begins to grow inside you. Not the kind that depends on praise or recognition, but a quiet respect for the way you carried yourself when the moment asks something difficult of you. This feeling is gentle, but it is steady. It does not rise quickly and disappear. It settles into the heart like a small stone resting at the bottom of clear water. The world around you will always carry voices, opinions, judgments, and misunderstandings. These things move through life the way wind moves through trees. They come, they pass, they return again in new forms. But within you, there is now a small place that remains untouched by all of that movement. A place that understands something simple. You do not need to answer every voice. You do not need to correct every thought someone has about you. You do not need to prove your worth in every passing moment. Sometimes the strongest answer is the quiet one that never leaves your lips. And in that quiet, there's a kind of peace that no argument could ever bring. So the moment fades. The words dissolve into memory, and you continue forward, carrying nothing heavy with you, only a calm silence and the quiet strength that lives within it,